All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to game number 1 of the IEM North American qualifiers. Spawned down here in the bottom right-hand corner of the map, we have the red Terran player from Team Elevate. Give it up for MaSa. And his opponent up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, the orange Protoss player from Team MYI. Give it up for RayReign. Of course, again, all the players we're going to be seeing today are North American passport holders, either for United States or for Canada. That means no Polt, no Hydra, no Violet. All just straight up people who have been living here for a while and have those NA passports. But let's go ahead and take a look. Frozen Temple. Hopefully you guys enjoy that map intro. This is actually probably one of my new favorite map intros, just because I love the look of that mothership being pulled along by the Viper Yank. It looks so derpy, especially when you get it from the kind of angle that Next Username got it from. But regardless, let's take a look at this matchup. PvT, of course, Frozen Temple, one of the few maps that Reaper openings still happen from Terran players. A lot of Terran players don't really go for these Reaper openings anymore, but looks like MaSa is going to do it just because the reason is you have so much area to jump in and out of the main base of your opponent with those Reapers on this map. A lot of the other maps, even if you have the cliffs facing on the low ground, it's a double edge or a doubly stacked cliff, so that means that the Reapers can't jump. The Reapers can only jump so high. And this is one of the few maps where there is just a ton of area to do it. So MaSa gonna go for that. Gonna be able to clean up this probe with that initial Reaper. But hey, RayReign gets the information he needs to. He sees the gas geyser, and that's really what he was looking for. So he's gonna know with his expansion, okay, I probably need to get out either my fast mothership core or I need to get out that adept or a stalker. Can't really cut too many corners on this, and he is gonna actually be going for that adept initially. Frozen Temple, of course, this is still the version that has the Xel'Naga watchtowers. I'll note that because I believe that change has not been made just yet. That's one of the changes that's going to be coming with the new map replacements. I think that's planned to happen maybe sometime the next week or two. Not entirely sure about the exact date for that. But those Xel'Naga watchtowers do play a really big role, especially when you have a player as aggressive as MaSa. That is one thing that if you want to characterize MaSa's playstyle, it is hyper aggressive. It's about messing with his opponent, not just, you know, kind of idly sitting back. As you know, I think some players would categorize like Major as one of those players that just tries to get up a very big army. He'll sometimes try and mess with his opponent, but for the most part, it's all about his macro. MaSa is all about getting in his opponent's face, throwing them off their game, and putting pressure on so many different sides that they just fall apart. That is MaSa's objective, is to make his opponent fall apart. And of course, on the map like this, having those Xel'Naga watchtowers, where if you can have and control that for RayReign, that's going to give so much more vision, allow him to see a lot of those weird move outs, allow him to see maybe some of those medevacs that don't come all the way on the far corners of the map. And I even like the small things that he's doing over here with kind of these gateways walling in or around this side. So that's going to cut down on the Reaper surface area that can move in. But even later on, it's going to create a little bit of a extra vision if any medevac drops or something try and come in from that right-hand side. Of course, we did end up seeing, I believe, Factory and Barracks being thrown down fairly fast for MaSa, getting up that starport nice and early on. So maybe he's going to try and follow this up with a little bit of harassment, a bit of drop play. But meanwhile, we did see RayReign go for the, I believe, the one gateway Robo. Also get up the Twilight Council, getting a Blink. Blink Robo has just become so unbelievably standard in the matchup these days that it's really more just surprising when players don't go for this. People have realized, hey, you know what? I really do need Blink fairly early on. Not only it's helpful for dealing with drops and everything, but it's so important to eventually have anyways to deal with Liberators. The Robotic Facility also very important to deal with any of the Widowmine drops and all that kind of harassment that can come out. But pretty fast third going to be coming out from RayReign as well. And this is, again, one of those maps where if you try and take a lot of expansions very quickly, I mean, third expansion, it's okay. It's on the low ground of the natural. Oh, the Reaper coming back in. Already up to 2 kills, now up to 3 kills. And those are, of course, all, I believe, worker kills. As, yeah, 3 workers kills. Does move up into the main base, but RayReign catches it with the remainder of his 3 stalkers that are sitting up there. Is finally going to clean up that Reaper, giving him a little bit of safety in terms of not being scouted any too much longer. But he's chrono boosting out not only Warp Gate but Blink, so I do feel like maybe RayReign is thinking about getting a little bit aggressive. Let's see how many gateways he has. He has only 3 Warp Gates out, so I mean maybe he could do a little bit of poking prodding, but honestly at this point I think with 3 gateways you probably want to play a little bit defensively. You don't want to move out just because the timing of it is, again, where these drops are going to be coming in. If he saw a big move out trying to time up with Warp Gate and Blink, then he would actually be so far out of position to deal with this. Of course, the two medevacs are going to be unloading and just trying to move in straight at the front. They're going to catch actually one of the stalkers. All the rest of the stalkers blink away. A lot of these probes already going down as they are trying to mine from that third. And even the pylon goes down. No photon overcharge is going to be available at this natural expansion. Another pylon tries to go down and is eventually going to be able to get up. Time warp goes down very uselessly. 15, 16, 17 workers already killed. MaSa is putting on an absolute clinic right now. The mothership core is going to go down. And then not even a photon overcharge is really able to be used except for way back here. I think it got a single shot off. Another medevac comes in to reinforce in the main base. And MaSa may eventually get cleaned up over here as now there's a decent number of stalkers and there's that immortal. But it's 33 workers to 44. Even having to pull his probes away so that these marines don't just start to focus fire more down. The immortal is getting focus fire down. It does go down. Another stalker go down as well. And all of the medevacs, I know one of the medevacs that does hold a couple of those marines does get sniped off. So I mean, not the worst thing in the world for RayReign, but at the same time, pretty gosh darn bad. Definitely not ideal. Now you have to remember, MaSa is sitting on a 2-base economy. He does have the third orbital command finishing up, and he is going to be able to land that pretty soon. But again, 50 workers to 37, and not only that, but some of the power units that RayReign is making, something like the, for example, the immortal does get sniped off, and that really does cut down on RayReign's ability to do a whole lot. But now we do have sentries starting to come out over here for RayReign. He's trying to get up that immortal count again. He doesn't have any transitionary tech of, say, robotics bay. He can't really start making disruptors. He can't really start making Templar or anything like that. So he's really going to be lacking the splash damage. He doesn't exactly have upgrades either. So he doesn't have the double forge going. So there's not a lot really going in favor of RayReign right now, because it means that he can't really just move across the map and put on the counter pressure. But if MaSa is given a little bit of time now to reproduce that army, he's going to be sitting in a very, very good position, especially off that better economy. Already has his +1 weapons done. So now RayReign has got to figure out some sort of miracle way to stay alive a little bit longer and get up to that point where he has that extra tech. He's going to go for the Resonating Glaives upgrade, which I don't hate too much. You know, the Adepts going to be slightly cheaper but tankier units that you can try and make something happen with. Even has those Blink Stalkers already to try and do a little bit extra micro with. Getting up a Forge finally. I don't think he's going to have time for this little push in over here though. Widowmine's also accompanying this, and I believe that he has an Observer. Yeah, he has 2 Observers out on the map right now. Whether or not he has them with his army is another question though, as a Widowmine does get a pretty good shot off, softening up a lot of those Adepts and taking out one of them. You're going to be able to clear up some of these Zone-Level Watchtowers as well. MaSa doesn't even have to do a ton of damage over here. He just has to put on the pressure, force RayReign to not play too greedy with his unit production and say, okay, you know what, you got to continue to make these stalkers. You got to continue to invest your gas into units right now. Use up that robotics ability to make more immortals. Don't use it to throw down a robotics bay and start pumping out disruptors. Keep him on the back foot, because as long as MaSa is not trading out too terribly, again, he's just going to be getting further and further ahead. Liberator now in the mix over here from MaSa. He's moving it out over here to the top left-hand side, getting up an armory to continue those upgrades, as he already has 1-1 finished up, sitting versus about just a halfway done +1 armor. Oh, this Liberator is going to get a decent number of kills, already up to 3. Going to deny mining over there with that natural expansion for a little bit. RayReign getting caught a bit out of position as he moves half of his army over to the natural expansion to try and deal with that. And now the other half is actually just caught completely out of position as he loses all of it. 3 workers have been killed so far, but more importantly, MaSa takes the game with the army being killed off and goes up 1-0 in this best of 3. And I actually forgot to get some cool sound effects going right now, but ladies and gentlemen, that is going to put, again, MaSa up with a 1-0 lead in this best of 3 series. We're going to be hopping to a short little break as we get ready to hop into the next game. We'll see you guys in just a little bit. Gentlemen, sorry, we're going to be hopping straight into it. No map intro, since we are going really quickly into game number 2. Players are very ready, and we're going to be spawning down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map on top of the orange Protoss player once again from Team MYI. Give it up for RayReign. And his opponent spawning up here in the top right-hand corner of the map, we have the blue Terran player from Elevate. Give it up for MaSa, sitting up 1-0. And I also want to give a couple of shout outs since we do have a couple of resubs. Sorry again if I miss any of your resubs. I don't actually have Twitch alerts, notifications, or anything set up. That's something that I generally need a little bit of Rifkin's help with to set up. And I think that he's probably taking a nap. He's been casting a lot. But big shout out to Gizmajit, and I believe there was one other resub. Gizmajit resubbed for 3 months in a row. I believe that he is an old sub, but maybe had to stop for a little bit. And of course, Lemon Street 1357 resubscribing for 6 months in a row. Thank you guys so much. Very much appreciate your guys' resubs. But all right, we do have yet another Reaper opening coming out from MaSa. The probe moves in, scouts out the gas, and says, okay, I know what's up now, and is going to actually hang out over here for a little bit longer. So maybe, I think that depending on when you get the gas geyser, you could potentially be going for the Reaper, or you might be going for the Reactor. I think that after seeing, okay, wait a second, the Marine still hasn't popped out. Marines take a little bit less time, I believe, than it takes for a Reaper to be made, so he knows, okay, Marine hasn't popped out yet. I know it's the Reaper. I know that you haven't thrown down the Reactor or anything yet. So he's going to be able to move back and avoid this Reaper for at least a little bit. Reaper is given chase. But I believe the probe does eventually get target fired down, because the Reaper just eventually makes... Oh, no! Very interesting path choice over here for the Reaper. I wonder what MaSa is actually trying to scout for. Because you might be thinking like maybe like a proxy Stargate or something along those lines, especially when he's moving all the way around over here. But I guess that is a common thing to try and do when you're in a matchup that, let's again be honest, we saw in that last game that MaSa is favored, and you kind of saw a bit of why he is favored in this series to take it. And oftentimes when pros players, they have their back up against the wall, they try and go for the cheese, they try and go for the proxy targets, they try and throw their opponents off a little bit. Not going to be the case over here for RayReign, though. RayReign, I will say, like, I can't really definitively say a lot about his style, because I don't really feel comfortable saying, like, I've seen so many games where he just plays this exact style. But in general, when I have seen him play, it's been pretty standard, typical macro-oriented games. It feels like a very solid player in the sense that he doesn't seem to be super reliant on a lot of gimmicks and everything. And he is going to be going again for that very typical Robotics Twilight Council opening, playing a little bit on the greedier side as he delays some of those gateways, and just getting up the fast one gateway Robo Twilight Council. But of course, against, I would say against like any other Terran player, it would be pretty normal. It wouldn't really be greedy. But against MaSa, you just always have to be prepared for the kind of weird bit of aggression they can throw out. But we do have a Dark Shrine coming out right now, as well as a Warp Prism. So RayReign, oh, this is so clever. I think that, oh no, okay, I saw the Chrono Boost on the Twilight Council a little bit earlier on, and he wasn't researching anything, so I thought that he was going to try and fake out MaSa. If MaSa tried to move in with a scout, like either try and throw down a scan, or if he used that Reaper to try and move back in, he would see the Twilight Council being Chrono Boosted. But no, it is actually going to be Blink coming out. So RayReign gonna try and feign making this look a little bit like a typical Blink play. Try and make it look like it's not going to be hyper aggressive or anything, but he's going to come in from the backside with a Warp Prism, and there is the scan. He sees the Twilight Council Chrono boosting and researching Blink. He also sees the robotic facility, and he sees, I believe, 1 or 2 of the gateways on the top side. Let's see. As I believe, yeah, he saw 1 of the gateways. He's probably got a decent idea of what's probably going on besides the Dark Shrine. The Dark Shrine may be throwing him a little bit for the loop. And we do have already the Warp Prism warp into those 2 Dark Templars. The Dark Shrine is finished up, and we'll see how prepared MaSa is. He has a Siege Tank out, which is something that you traditionally get if you're expecting a big Blink attack. But right now, that's not really what he has to worry about. He has to worry about getting up some missile turrets. He does have the Engineering Bays out, and he's not producing any missile turrets. This is actually going to be a pretty big problem. At the same time, we do have a bit of a drop in the backside. It killed off 2 workers, not an absurd amount. Warp Prism going to be moving in, though. 1 DT trying to move it at the front, realizing, hey, the wall in's still there, not going to be able to do a whole lot. Maybe he can try and focus fire down that wall in while this other pressure is going on. He's going to go ahead and drop in both of the DTs, and I think at this point, MaSa should probably know what's going on. Throws down the scan and almost gets a snipe off on 1 of the DTs. Oh, Cyclone lock it onto that Warp Prism. Not going to be able to get it, but it's going to get it very, very low on health. Going to make it very difficult for these DTs to move back in. And I believe the missile turrets have already been started. Yeah, 1 missile turret going up in the natural expansion, another one up in the main base. Over at the front, actually. Not in the mineral line. So one of these DTs still has the potential. No, there's actually already a missile turret done closer to the mineral line. So MaSa holds and doesn't end up losing really a single worker. Has to use about 3 or 4 scans. That is a bit of damage. And of course, RayReign does make it out with one of the DTs, doesn't lose the Warp Prism, so it's not the worst thing in the world for RayReign, but it still definitely did not go quite as well as RayReign would have liked. The nice thing is that he kind of secured himself a bit of safety in the sense that he didn't really have to deal with a lot of aggression out of MaSa. He had to deal with that one drop at the back for the natural expansion, but for the most part, he's kind of gotten away with that third without having to worry about Liberator harassment or additional Widow Mine drops or anything. So, and of course, he does also keep MaSa at home for at least a little bit, because MaSa has to not only be worried about the DTs, he has to be worried about just that Warp Prism, moving back in, warping in Zealots and everything. So he knows that MaSa is going to be at home for at least a little bit. Now that the Viking's out, it's going to be a little bit harder. Viking can do a decent enough job of at least pushing back the Warp Prism, putting a timer on any kind of harassment that comes out. But for the most part, MaSa is now going to be looking to get that third expansion. He already has that 1-1 finished up once again, though. And you can see that's kind of helpful, especially since it's allowing him to just barely survive some of these attacks from the DT. But here we go. Robotics Bay finally coming down for RayReign. He's getting to that point that he never really was able to get to in that last game. In the last game, he really wanted to get up to the different form of tech, or at least better upgrades or something for the more late game stages. It really wasn't able to get up to in that last game. He was sitting on that Blink Stalker Adept with Resonating Glaive for a very, very long time, where normally you'd want to get out some of those disruptors or at least better upgrades. In this game, he's finally going to be able to do it. Warp Prism's still buying a lot of time, as you can see. He's even actually getting to move across the map, as this Warp Prism is going to get taken out, but just in time, the Stalkers actually do arrive at the front, and maybe he can take advantage of the fact that there is a decent chunk of the army sitting over here in the natural expansion. He's pushing forward with a lot of these Stalkers, blinking back, not really losing any, so he's doing a pretty good job with it so far. But here we go. Siege tanks now being lifted up by the medevacs, going to move over to the front, going to make it a lot harder for RayReign to do a lot. But again, RayReign is doing a great job of just keeping MaSa very much on the defensive, and that allows him to do things like take this fourth expansion. You have to remember, MaSa is a very aggressive player, but he hasn't been able to be aggressive in this game. And I think that is the most important thing to note about how RayReign is playing. It's not that he's doing a lot of damage, it's that he's preventing MaSa from doing a lot of damage. And I think that's a really smart way to play against MaSa. And look at this, even getting some of those pylon walls up, so you can see if the medevacs start to move out. This is really starting to look a lot better for RayReign as this game goes on. I wasn't a huge fan of it earlier, but as this game goes on, as it moves to the later stages, I'm actually liking this more and more. He's getting out those disruptors. He has to be very careful not to lose too many or any of those Stalkers, as he is going to have to be careful now since MaSa is finally looking to move out. But I believe at least 1 or 2 of the disruptors are out. 1 disruptor is out, but it's still being rallied over to the army. RayReign got to be very careful. Some good force shields. He could still maybe try and take an engagement over here, but not with those siege tanks in the mix. He's really going to want to wait for that single disruptor to make his way over. Drawing down the double Stargates. That's actually pretty interesting since he hasn't seen any Liberators yet, and maybe going for a Tempest a little bit early preemptively. Could be good. And oh my god, I just want to highlight RayReign with these pylon walls, and this is so good. There's barely any area right over here. This is the only real area where MaSa can kind of slip by without really tipping off RayReign on the north side that he's coming in for the drop. Now the south side, a totally different story. Still a lot of open area over there, but I really am a fan of how RayReign is playing this so far. MaSa trying to move forward. Once again, he's going for the big Dune drop, and RayReign may be very far out of position for this. He has a single observer further down south, but this observer is going to be catching this. He may try and throw down a warp in. He's going to throw down a couple of photon cans. I actually don't think that's the worst idea, just to buy a little bit of time. Throws down 1 photon overcharge, but the mothership core gets immediately sniped off. The robotic facility gets taken out. And now we're going to see a world of hurt over here as the cybernetic score gets taken out. And that's going to be no more Adept or Stalker Warpins for a little bit. Nexus gets taken out. MaSa is committing for quite a bit of time over here. Surprisingly, Disruptor shots are going to finally cue the pickup. He does make it out with the majority of the medevacs, but a decent amount of damage was done. He comes in with a lot of Marauders, and there's not anything over here to defend the fourth expansion. This is where MaSa hits his stride, where he starts to deal a lot of damage. Target firing down that fourth expansion. A wave of DT is warped in over here, trying to get some damage done, trying to save the Nexus, but it is not going to happen. The probes even trying to be pulled, but MaSa has done the damage. He's taking out 2 bases with a 1-2 punch, taking out 13 workers as well. Now, RayReign is not a terrible worker count, but he's only sitting on about 1.5 bases of economy, because that fourth expansion was so important. And of course, MaSa, after he secured that move out, after he was finally able to move it across the map, he did finally take this 4th expansion. Looks like he's only finally now being able to saturate it, but he's sitting in a much, much better position now. RayReign, he's kept his army alive though, and that is something you have to remember. He did lose the robotics facility, which is painful. He also lost his cybernetics core, which is also painful. Hopefully he's actually remade that. Has he remade that? Yeah, okay. He did end up remaking that over here. And he does have the fleet beacon, so he can start making some of those tempests. So it's not like he's completely up a creek without a paddle. Can't really make any late game tech. No, he can make some late game tech. He can start to deal, especially with the Liberators, which is really, really important. But he really can't make a lot more disruptors. He's stuck on the 3 that he has, and he's got to keep these alive. That is going to be so important to deal with that Bioforce on the ground that's sitting on superior 2-2 upgrades, even going up to 3-3 already. Here we go. Disruptor shot tries to go off, but it gets sniped off almost immediately. None of these disruptor shots go off, except for one of them finally gets a good connection. That is going to be enough to push MaSa back, as well as just a decent number of these adepts. But his 4th expansion, if it goes down, oh, I don't even know how RayReign's ever going to have the economy to recover from this. MaSa's focus firing it down. He's not going to let it happen. Tempests just do not deal damage fast enough, and the 4th expansion is going to be forfeit. RayReign's final hope in this game may just be trying to kill off as much of MaSa's army and walking straight across the map. He's got some of the Tempests, but the Tempests are there to do the eventual slow but sure pick-aways at his opponent. They're not there to do the big straight-up engagements and take straight-up fights and take the damage. RayReign just doesn't have another choice, though. Some of the pylons getting picked off over here. Nice revelations being thrown down, at least on this army, so you can keep an eye on where it is and how small it is, so he knows he has to move in over here. Planetary Fortress, though, going to make this a much easier defense for MaSa. I actually even love the kind of walling in over here with the barracks and even the sensor tower adding into the wall in. Going to make approaching through that choke point a very, very difficult proposition. Tempest is going to help a bit with that, but no, RayReign is pulling back. He's got a decent number of Stalkers now out, but Stalkers just don't scale too well against how many Marauders MaSa has in this late game stage with 3-3 upgrades. Oracle gets taken out. No more revelations for him. Does have one final revelation thrown down on those medevacs, but is it going to be enough? Here we go. Big disruptor shots go off and get some pretty decent connections. And, oh, Disruptors, they're sitting at the front. They're going to get taken out, and MaSa is starting to charge on forward. The Tempests are staying alive, but for how much longer? It doesn't matter. The ground army is dissipating for RayReign. He's just not going to have enough. More reinforcements coming from MaSa. The Liberators are sieging up, and even the Tempests are starting to fall. GG gets called. MaSa going to be the victor. So try and get my scene. I have some awesome scene okay. There we go. Finally get it going. All right. Congratulations, MaSa. Moving on from the round of 16. Now, of course, if you are a RayReign fan, do not fret or frown because RayReign is still in the bracket. The only thing is he's moved down to the losers bracket. So obviously it's going to be a little bit less comfortable, but you're not totally out of it just yet. You still have an opportunity to fight. And of course, MaSa is one of the favorites for making it out of this entire thing. You kind of got a little bit of unfortunate bracket luck with facing off versus MaSa this early on, but you still got a pretty good shot of maybe making it through that losers bracket. Now, MaSa going to move on to face off versus, let's see, the winner of Peely Peely versus Panda Bear Me, which, as far as I'm aware, unless Wardy has changed his mind about it, Wardy should be casting in. Wardy is casting over on twitch.tv/SC2, or it's twitch.tv/Wardy. WARDIII, 3 I's in Wardy. Really, really awesome guy. He's also solo casting. He normally does do pure solo cast, so go give some love to that guy. I think last month he averaged casting over 6 hours a day for the entire month. Over 6 hours every single day for the entire month. That was his average. So absolutely insane. Solo casting that whole thing. So go give him a little bit of love. And of course, check out Panda Bear Me versus Jon Snow on that side. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be hopping to a short little break as we go ready to find the next match. You guys are watching the WCS, or sorry, IEM. I guess it's still a WCS event, but IEM Shanghai qualifiers for North America, the Passport qualifiers. Top 2 will advance out of this double elimination bracket. We'll see you guys in a little bit.